Connected to the divine, have you ever stopped to think that the book of Proverbs is not just a collection of ancient wisdom, but a true love letter from God to those who desire to live with purpose, balance, and prosperity? In a world that moves so fast, where decisions are made in haste and hearts live in distress, Proverbs presents itself as a divine manual that teaches us not just to survive, but to flourish spiritually, emotionally, and even financially. Are you ready to break spiritual blockages and live the fullness of God's promises? Don't miss the chance to experience the transformation He has for you. Subscribe to the channel and walk with us on a journey of faith, healing, and restoration. Leave your like, activate the notification bell, and share this with those who also need a change in their lives. Don't forget to click on the first pinned comment to access a special prayer and an offer that can change your life. Stay until the end, your life can change now. God, in His infinite goodness, did not leave us without direction. He gave us this treasure with 31 chapters, one for each day of the month, as if to say, every day, I want to speak to you, I want to guide your steps, I want to show you that there is a higher path. In Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 it is written, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." This is not just a beautiful phrase, it's an invitation to let go of control and allow God to lead our journey. Comment, I believe that God is already preparing my victory. How many times have you cried out to God for answers? Perhaps in silent nights, with a heavy heart, you have asked, Lord, what should I do? Maybe even today you are facing tough decisions, family challenges, financial struggles, or inner unrest. And it is exactly in those moments that Proverbs becomes a spiritual compass. Each verse carries a piece of divine wisdom, as if the Father Himself were whispering eternal counsel into our ears. When we read it, we hear echoes of the Creator's voice saying, "My son, pay attention to my words." Proverbs is not just reading, it's revelation. It shows us how to manage our emotions, how to speak with gentleness, how to deal with money, how to build healthy relationships, and above all, how to walk in communion with God. Comment, I trust that God strengthens me in every moment. Now imagine what your life would be like if you applied one lesson from Proverbs each day. Imagine waking up in the morning and, before running to social media or the day's worries, dedicating a few minutes to the wisdom of God. The Word would begin to shape your mind, strengthen your spirit, and renew your faith. Proverbs teaches that true prosperity starts on the inside. It's not just about material goods, but about a peaceful heart, a clear mind, and a life aligned with heaven's principles. And the most extraordinary thing is that when we cultivate this inner wisdom, it inevitably manifests on the outside, in finances, in projects, in relationships, and in emotional health. Wisdom positions us for God's favor. Comment, I believe in God's complete and abundant restoration. Maybe today you feel like something needs to change. Maybe you've already tried so many human strategies, sought so many answers in the wrong places, and still feel empty. Let me tell you with love and authority, it's time to return to the source. It's time to open your heart and allow God to transform every area of your life, starting with your mind. Proverbs says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Proverbs chapter 23 verse 7. What has been filling your thoughts? What have you been feeding your soul? The Word invites us to trade fear for faith, doubt for trust, and anxiety for the peace that surpasses all understanding. God doesn't just want to comfort you. He wants to renew you, lift you up, and lead you to a place where wisdom is the foundation of all your decisions. Comment, I know God hears me, my faith is in Him. And don't think you have to do this alone. The beauty of the journey with God is that He walks by our side, step by step. And more than that, He gives us a faith-filled community to grow, learn, and intercede for one another. This space here is not just more internet content, it's a calling. It's an invitation for you to step out of autopilot, abandon old habits, and build a new story with God. You are not here by accident. Every word you are reading is a seed planted by the Lord to bear fruit at the right time. But that transformation begins when you decide to open your heart. When you allow yourself to be led. When you say, Lord, I'm ready to live something new with you. So, I ask you sincerely, which area of your life most needs God's wisdom? Is it your finances? Your relationships? Your emotional life? Or maybe your faith, which has seemed to weaken over time? Whatever the answer, know that there is a lesson in Proverbs exactly for that. Nothing escapes the Creator's eyes. He knows every detail, every hidden pain, every silent prayer. And He prepared this moment to remind you that there is still hope. There is still a path. There is still time. And you don't have to be perfect to begin, you just have to be willing. Willing to learn, to grow, and to trust. Did you know there is a powerful method to manifest money? This technique can transform your beliefs about reality at the deepest level of the subconscious mind, and it literally changed my life. We would like to invite you to experience this incredible technique. We believe that when you trust that God wants to manifest in your life, you gain the courage to ask Him directly. God desires to bless each of us in unique and wonderful ways. Therefore, be open and confident when seeking His blessings and divine directions, believing that He has a special plan for you. To support our channel and the team who works tirelessly to bring this valuable content, we kindly ask that you consider purchasing our product. Just click the link in the first comment to see how this technique can work for you too. Your purchase will not only help you manifest the life you desire, but it will also allow us to continue sharing inspiring and transformative messages with more people. We appreciate your support and trust. Now, I want to encourage you to do something simple, but powerful. Write in the comments which teaching from Proverbs has impacted you the most so far, or which area of your life you feel you need to surrender into God's hands. Your words may be the answer someone has been waiting for. Your testimony can strengthen the faith of another weary heart. Here, we are a community. We walk together. And together, we can also pray for one another. So, share your prayer request. There is no prayer too small for God. Whether it's a financial issue, an illness, a dormant dream, or uncertain direction, God is attentive. And when we unite our voices in prayer, heaven moves. Imagine the power of dozens, hundreds of people praying together, believing for healing, transformation, and miracles. And remember, what's coming next will be even more powerful. As we dive into the 31 lessons of Proverbs, you will see that each chapter is a gift. A map that leads us to maturity, peace, and true prosperity. But it all begins with a choice. The choice to listen. The choice to seek. The choice to obey. Because wisdom is not just knowledge, it's action. It's applying what you learn. It's living differently. And if you've made it this far, it's because the Spirit of God is calling you into this new season. Take a deep breath. Surrender your worries. And get ready to walk side by side with the Creator. I know exactly what it feels like to give everything you've got, to work hard, to keep the faith, and still feel like you're walking in circles. It's as if the strength is running out and the results aren't coming. For a long time, I lived this way. I woke up every day with hope, made plans, got organized, but by the end of the day, I'd return home with that silent anguish, as if everything I did wasn't enough. I prayed, asked for direction, cried in silence, and still, the heavens seemed silent. It was as if God was distant, as if the promises weren't for me. And the worst part wasn't the effort in vain, but the loneliness that accompanied every failed attempt. I knew there was something beyond what I was living, but I didn't know how to reach it. One day, in the middle of a conversation with a very close friend, he asked me if I had ever read the book of Proverbs with an open heart. He said that maybe the answer I was looking for was there. Honestly, I thought it was strange. To me, Proverbs was just a collection of nice, old sayings. I had always read the Bible, but I confess I had never really delved into this book deeply. But that moment, something prompted me to try. It was like that suggestion was a divine seed planted in my heart. I grabbed my Bible that very night and decided to open Proverbs as if searching for treasure, as if I truly wanted to hear the voice of God. And that's where a journey began that not only changed the way I live, but most importantly, changed the way I see life. As I read, I felt as if God Himself was sitting beside me, explaining, correcting, comforting. One of the first verses that deeply impacted me was Proverbs chapter 16 verse 3, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." At that moment, I realized that I had been living by the strength of my own arm, without truly committing my efforts to the Lord. I worked, planned, executed, but without inviting God to be the center of it all. I was seeking success without surrender, victory without dependence. That verse hit me like a light in the darkness. I cried. It was as if God was saying to me, "You are not alone. Just let me lead you." And that's what I began to do. Day by day, I learned to present my plans to Him, even the smallest ones. The lessons kept coming, shaping my character. Another lesson that stayed with me was from Proverbs chapter 13 verse 11. "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." This verse taught me to value the process. In a society that demands quick results and exalts shortcuts, I understood that God honors constant effort, patience, and honesty. I began applying this in my finances, at work, and even in my relationships. I remember a very important financial decision I had to make. In the past, I would have acted impulsively, driven by haste and emotion. But now, with the teachings of Proverbs alive within me, I chose to stop, pray, and wait. I sought wisdom, listened to advice, and in the right time, the doors opened. And they opened in the most unexpected and beautiful way. It was God honoring each step of faith and every choice made with prudence. Before, I would react impulsively, raise my voice, use harsh words, thinking that this would resolve conflicts. But Proverbs chapter 15 verse 1 came as a mirror. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. It was painful to admit that many of the arguments I faced could have been avoided if I had chosen calm over anger. I started practicing this at home, with friends, and even at work. And, little by little, I noticed something amazing. When my words changed, my relationships also changed. I began to listen more, speak more gently, and the atmosphere around me became lighter. That constant tension, those unnecessary arguments, all began to dissolve. Peace didn't come from outside. It was born within me, from the words I chose to say. God showed me that wisdom often lies in keeping quiet at the right time and speaking with love when necessary. One of the most significant moments was with a friend who was going through a deep crisis in his marriage. He had already tried everything, but felt his relationship was falling apart. Then I remembered Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." I shared this with him, and I must admit I didn't know if it would make a difference. But a few weeks later, he came back saying he had applied that truth, and the change was real. He began choosing his words more carefully with his wife, stopped acting impulsively, and started showing respect and listening. They restarted their relationship. And today, they live with more peace. Seeing this fruit in his life was one of the greatest confirmations that God's Word is living and effective. What transforms one life can transform thousands. With each chapter, I realized that God doesn't just want to bless us, He wants to teach us to live with integrity, balance, and wisdom. I understood that wisdom is not just knowledge, but practice. It is about making the right choices, even when it hurts. It's saying no to certain opportunities, waiting for the right time, speaking less, and listening more. Biblical wisdom made me understand that God manifests Himself in the details, in the small choices, in the silences, and in the everyday actions. I thought I needed a miracle to get out of stagnation, and I received something even greater, a new way of living. I'm not saying that my life is perfect now. There are still challenges, struggles, and unanswered prayers. But now I walk with direction. I know where I'm stepping. And most importantly, I know I am not alone. Rise with confidence, for there is something deep and transformative waiting to be discovered in your life. Each of us has areas that cry out for change, and often these areas are related to our finances, relationships, or even our work. The good news is that the book of Proverbs offers divine wisdom capable of guiding us through each of these areas. Each verse is like a key that, when applied correctly, can open doors we may have never imagined. The secret lies in how we choose to follow these teachings and allow them to truly transform the way we live. As you reflect on the lessons shared in this video, I want you to think about a specific area in your life that needs change. It could be your health, your work, or even your peace of mind. No matter what it is, God has something to say to you through the wisdom found in the book of Proverbs. As you take this moment to reflect, also think about the power of words. They have a real impact on our lives. If you feel led, write something in the comments such as, "I trust God to transform my life," or "I place my path in the hands of the Lord." These words are not just empty phrases, they have the power to plant seeds of faith and hope in your heart. And by sharing them, you will be taking a significant step toward the change you so desire. What we are doing here is not just about watching a video, it is an invitation to true transformation. Through the wisdom of Proverbs, we can understand how to live more fully, with purpose, and above all, in alignment with God. If God was able to transform my life, I have full confidence that He can transform yours too. The journey we begin now is just the start, and what lies ahead is far greater than any of us can imagine. There is so much more to learn and apply. Let's walk together on this process of change, knowing that the wisdom we find in Proverbs is an infallible guide. Proverbs is not merely a collection of good advice to improve daily life. It is so much more than that. Each teaching within this book carries a depth that goes beyond the written words. Proverbs guides us on a path that can transform our thinking, our attitudes, our interactions with others, and even our relationship with God. It teaches us how to live wisely and with balance in every area of our lives. When we apply these principles, we are not just changing our perspective, we are aligning ourselves with God's plan for our lives, seeking to live according to His purpose. One of the most powerful things Proverbs teaches us is how God's wisdom can transform our view of finances. In a world where we are often seduced by the pressure of immediacy and the desire to accumulate wealth quickly, Proverbs offers a clear vision on how to manage money wisely. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to abundance, but the hasty come to poverty." This verse is not just about making money but about how to plan our finances wisely, avoiding the traps of anxiety and haste. True abundance comes when we learn to be diligent, live within our means, and plan for the future, without letting rush or impatience guide our decisions. Beyond finances, Proverbs also offers valuable teachings on how to build healthy relationships. In a world where conflicts and misunderstandings can arise easily, it is essential to know how to respond with wisdom. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 1 says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." This principle can be applied in any type of relationship, family, work, or even friendships. When we apply the wisdom of a kind and respectful response, we can avoid allowing anger and bitterness to take over, creating an environment of peace and understanding. Imagine how many disagreements could be avoided if we simply chose the right word at the right moment. Another fundamental principle that Proverbs teaches us is the importance of seeking wisdom in a world full of distractions. We live in a time when we are constantly bombarded with information, but not all information is wisdom. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 warns us, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom, and whatever you get insight." What this verse tells us is that wisdom should be our priority. It is not something we find superficially, but something we must actively seek, with effort and dedication. By investing time in learning, reflecting, and seeking understanding, we become better prepared to face life's challenges and make wiser decisions, aligned with God's purpose. True transformation does not happen automatically. It happens when we decide to apply the teachings of Proverbs practically. This can be challenging, especially when we are immersed in life's daily struggles. However, when we dedicate ourselves to living according to divine wisdom, we are planting seeds of change in our hearts. As we move forward on this path, the lessons of Proverbs become clearer, more applicable, and more powerful in our journey of transformation. With each step taken with wisdom, we align ourselves more closely with God's plan for our lives and become better equipped to live a full and abundant life. I want to leave you with a reflection. Are you willing to apply the wisdom of Proverbs to your life? Perhaps it is time to stop and reflect on a specific area that needs transformation. Whether it is in your finances, your relationships, or the way you deal with life's challenges, Proverbs has something to offer. By applying these principles, you are not just making temporary changes but aligning your life with God's eternal purpose. This is true transformation, a transformation that begins in the heart and reflects in every aspect of our lives, bringing not only blessings to ourselves but also to everyone around us. My child, there is a path of wisdom that I have reserved for you. The book of Proverbs is like a light in the darkness, guiding each of your steps and revealing the eternal principles that transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. Wisdom is not something you find all at once, but something that is planted and grows over time. Each lesson, each word in Proverbs, is like a seed that, when tended with reverence and patience, bears wonderful fruit in your life. I don't want you just to learn these lessons, I want you to live them. I want you, as you apply each teaching to your heart, to experience a deep and lasting transformation. The wisdom I give you is not for some distant day, but for now. Begin today, my child, to walk this path and imagine where it may take you in the future. The first lesson you must learn is that wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord. Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." It's not about being afraid of me, but about having a deep respect for who I am. I am the creator of all that exists, the sustainer of your life, the one who knows every detail of your being. Fear, here, is understanding that I am sovereign, that my wisdom is infinite, and that by respecting me, you begin to see the world as I see it. This kind of fear is not a burden, but a source of freedom, for when you acknowledge my sovereignty, you are free to surrender your heart, your choices, and your life into my hands. This is true wisdom, my child, and it is in it that the transformation you seek begins. In the midst of life's challenges, you will often find yourself facing difficult decisions. There are times when, no matter how hard you try, clarity seems distant. But it is in these moments, my child, that the fear of the Lord makes all the difference. By seeking my guidance with humility and trust, you will find wisdom that does not come from you but from me. I can open your eyes to see what was once hidden and guide you on paths that you couldn't see on your own. When you submit to my will, you find peace and direction, even in the most confusing situations. Always remember that true wisdom is not found in your own strength, but in trusting that I can and want to guide you. My child, another lesson that Proverbs teaches us is about the importance of listening. The world you live in values self-opinion and independent thought, but I tell you that in order to attain wisdom, you must be willing to listen and learn. It's not about rejecting your own ideas, but about being willing to hear my voice and the voices of others I have placed around you. When you learn to listen attentively, you begin to see beyond your own perspective. Furthermore, choosing your words wisely can bring harmony and peace to your relationships. In Proverbs, I teach you to speak with wisdom, not just to avoid error, but to build relationships that glorify my name and bring the best to all involved. In relationships, my child, wisdom is even more vital. I know that in your interactions with others, there will be moments of conflict, disagreement, and even pain. But in Proverbs, I teach you how to cultivate relationships based on respect, understanding, and wisdom. When you choose to listen before you speak, when you opt to be patient and understand the other person, you reflect my character. Instead of responding with anger, as the world often teaches, you learn to be calm, gentle, and wise. When you apply these principles, you will see your relationships flourish. Forgiveness, respect, and patience are seeds of wisdom that, when planted, grow into deep and lasting relationships. In every interaction, my child, there is an opportunity to be a reflection of my love and wisdom. In your life, there will be moments of hard work and moments of rest. Proverbs teaches us the balance between these two aspects of life. Wisdom is not working tirelessly without rest, but it is also not living in laziness and procrastination. In Proverbs, I speak to you about the importance of being diligent, but also about being wise enough to know when to rest and rejuvenate. Work without rest can exhaust you, and rest without work can lead to stagnation. I have called you to a life of balance, where every part of your being, body, mind, and spirit, is cared for. When you learn to be diligent and, at the same time, to rest in me, your life becomes more full and effective. When you live according to the principles of Proverbs, you begin to experience a level of peace that can only come from me. I want you to trust fully in me, my child. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." This doesn't mean you should abandon your mind or your efforts, but that your trust should not be in your own strength, but in me. I will give you direction, wisdom, and clarity if you trust with all your heart. True wisdom comes from trusting in me, not from self-sufficiency. When you surrender completely, you will see that I guide every step of yours, making your path straight and leading you to where you need to be. When you live a life of wisdom, you don't just grow spiritually, but you also prosper in every area. This doesn't mean you will be free from difficulties or challenges, but that, by applying these lessons, you will find true prosperity, a prosperity that goes beyond the material and enters into the spiritual. I have called you to an abundant life, a life that reflects my love, wisdom, and purpose. As you follow this path, my child, you will see the impact wisdom has in every area of your life. To prosper is not just to have more, but to live with purpose and fulfillment, fulfilling the plan I have for you. The fear of the Lord is one of the deepest and most powerful concepts we can embrace in our spiritual walk. It is not a paralyzing fear or terror that makes us retreat, but a reverent respect that brings us closer to God. When we understand the true meaning of the fear of the Lord, we begin to see life in a completely different way. Once we surrender to Him with this respect and trust, we discover that we no longer need to fear anything. There is no more room for the fears that imprison us, nor for the uncertainties that consume us. As it is written in Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." It is through this reverence that we are led to a life of wisdom and purpose. When we place God at the center of our lives, other concerns lose their weight. This doesn't mean we won't face difficulties, but it does mean that we will face these moments with the confidence that God is in control. He knows our future, understands our battles, and always has the best for us, even when we can't see the solution. The fear of the Lord gives us a higher perspective because it helps us understand that nothing is beyond the reach of His power. Therefore, by fearing God, we are not limited but freed from the pressure of controlling the outcomes of our lives. We recognize that, despite our fragility, God is strong enough to guide and lead us. In Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6, we are reminded to trust completely in the Lord and not in our own understanding. This is crucial. Divine wisdom does not come from our intelligence or our human abilities, but from the humility to acknowledge that we depend on God for everything. When we put God first, our hearts open to a new way of living, not driven by fear or anxiety but by trust in His power and direction. The fear of the Lord frees us from the need to please everyone around us. It frees us from the pressure of carrying the world on our shoulders. It frees us from the temptation to try to control everything and everyone around us. Instead, we learn to trust in the wisdom of God, who leads us with patience, grace, and love. This freedom brings with it a deep peace. The peace that comes from God is different from any peace the world can offer. It is not temporary, but a constant peace that accompanies us at all times, even in the most difficult situations. This peace comes from trust in God, knowing that He is in control and that everything He allows in our lives has a greater purpose. As it is written in Philippians chapter 4 verse 7, "The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. When we fear the Lord, this peace manifests abundantly, enabling us to face any adversity with the certainty that God is with us. Furthermore, the wisdom that comes from God is not something exclusive for our personal benefit. Divine wisdom has the power to transform our lives in such a way that it becomes a testimony to others. When we act with wisdom, our actions reflect the goodness and character of God, and this is visible to those around us. People begin to notice the difference in how we live, in how we deal with difficulties, and this awakens in them a desire to know more about the God who guides us. In Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7, we read, "Wisdom is the principal thing, acquire wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding." When we seek wisdom, we are not only seeking something for ourselves but something that will be a blessing to those around us, a key to opening doors of understanding and transformation. There is a profound beauty in living with divine wisdom because it enables us to act with discernment and clarity in the midst of chaos. In a world full of distractions and conflicting voices, the wisdom of God is like a light that illuminates the path before us. In moments of indecision, we are guided by His Word. In times of crisis, we are sustained by His peace. And this wisdom is not given to us automatically. It requires a daily pursuit, a commitment to prayer, reading the Scriptures, and meditation on what God is speaking to us. Proverbs chapter 2 verse 6 reminds us, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from His mouth come knowledge and understanding." This wisdom is like a treasure, and we must seek it diligently because it leads us to a life of purpose and direction. Many times, we are tempted to seek quick and easy solutions to our problems, believing that we can solve them on our own. We live in a society that values productivity and efficiency, and often feel pressured to act quickly. But the wisdom of God teaches us to slow down, reflect, and seek His direction before making hasty decisions. It calls us to trust in God's timing and to be patient, knowing that He is always in control. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 7 tells us, "Do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil." When we turn away from the error of trying to control everything ourselves and trust in the Lord, He leads us along paths that take us to a fuller, richer life of peace and meaning. True wisdom also teaches us to deal with others in a just and loving manner. When we fear the Lord, our perspective on others changes. Instead of seeking only our own good, we begin to act for the collective good, building healthy and graceful relationships. Wisdom teaches us to be humble, to recognize our flaws, and to seek reconciliation when needed. In Proverbs chapter 16 verse 24, we read, "Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones." When we act with wisdom, our words and actions have the power to heal, restore, and build up, making us instruments of peace and love in the world. Therefore, the fear of the Lord is the key to a life full of wisdom, peace, and purpose. It frees us from the fears that imprison us, empowers us to live with integrity, and transforms us into lights for others. When we place God at the center of our lives, the wisdom He offers becomes the strength that guides us in all areas. Divine wisdom not only benefits us but also spreads to those around us, touching lives and transforming the world. If you have not yet experienced the power of the fear of the Lord in your life, I encourage you to seek this deep relationship with God, to begin today walking in His wisdom, and to allow Him to guide you in every step you take. Many times, we face challenges in our lives, and the feeling of being alone in our battles is common. It seems like the answers are distant, and decisions become harder every day. However, divine wisdom is within our reach. In his letter, James chapter 1 verse 5 reminds us, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." This promise brings comfort and security, for God, in his infinite goodness, offers wisdom to all who seek with a sincere heart. Wisdom is not a privilege for a few but a gift from God for all who are willing to ask. What we need to do is open our hearts and seek this wisdom with humility and trust. Imagine, for a moment, what your life would be like if you began each day with divine wisdom in your mind and heart. I'm not talking about a simple or momentary effort but a constant and daily practice of seeking God's presence. This doesn't mean you will be immune to problems or difficulties, but, on the contrary, it means that you will have the ability to face these challenges with more clarity and serenity. A friend of mine began adopting a simple but profound practice of dedicating the first few minutes of his day to prayer and reading Proverbs. Over time, he noticed significant changes. Situations that once seemed confusing and impossible to resolve began to become clearer. He started acting more calmly, making more balanced decisions, and feeling a peace he hadn't known before. It wasn't an immediate process, but over the months, the transformation was deep and lasting. This makes me reflect, how many times do we neglect the power of seeking divine wisdom every day? God's wisdom is a beacon that illuminates our path, especially when life's difficulties hit us hard. Many of us go through difficult moments, whether in our personal, financial, or emotional lives. And, many times, anxiety and fear take over us. However, divine wisdom gives us a different perspective, helps us see beyond the immediate circumstances, and teaches us to trust in God's perfect plan for our lives. Proverbs, as a divine manual, teaches us to live according to God's will. It is not just a book of human advice but a deep and sacred guide that can direct us in every area of our lives. God's wisdom allows us to understand that even in the most complicated situations, He has a purpose for us, and His promises are faithful. As we begin to seek wisdom, we notice that this not only transforms us internally but also helps us make wiser decisions, more aligned with God's purposes. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12 warns us, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." This verse reminds us that often our own limited understanding leads us to make hasty decisions that can take us away from the best path. God's wisdom, on the other hand, leads us to discern what is true and good, enabling us to choose the way of life and peace. When we seek divine wisdom, we are protected from the dangers that arise when we follow our own vision without consulting God's perfect plan. God's wisdom empowers us to see beyond appearances, make decisions with discernment, and act with the confidence that He is guiding us. The search for God's wisdom is not something that happens instantly. On the contrary, it is a continuous journey that requires patience, dedication, and daily prayer. Each day is a new opportunity to learn and grow in divine wisdom. Wisdom is not something we acquire once and for all but something that is continually renewed in our lives. The daily practice of seeking God's wisdom transforms our character, strengthens our faith, and empowers us to face challenges with confidence. As we dedicate ourselves to prayer and meditation on the Scriptures, we are shaped more into the image of Christ. No matter where we are on our journey, each moment is an opportunity to grow in wisdom and spiritual maturity. Many times, when we face challenges, we forget that God has given us a complete manual for living wisely. Proverbs is a book rich in teachings, offering divine principles for handling money, relationships, work, and even emotions. When we are in difficulties, we tend to look to our own strength or seek answers from external sources. However, what God offers us is much deeper. He offers us wisdom that transcends human understanding and empowers us to live according to His purposes. Divine wisdom is not limited to intellect or human reasoning but is reflected in a heart that seeks to live in harmony with God and others. Every time we seek God's wisdom, we become more capable of making decisions that bring peace, prosperity, and harmony. Another important aspect of divine wisdom is the choice of companions we have around us. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 20 teaches us, "He who walks with the wise will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." This reminds us of the importance of the influences we allow in our lives. Our friendships, advice, and relationships have a direct impact on the course of our lives. If we walk with those who seek God's wisdom, our lives will be transformed. But if we surround ourselves with people who lead us astray, our choices may deviate. Divine wisdom teaches us to be selective about the people we associate with. We should seek to be surrounded by people who inspire us, challenge us to grow spiritually, and lead us closer to God. Finally, divine wisdom is not just for our own edification but for the good of those around us. When we seek God's wisdom, we are empowered to positively influence the people in our lives. Our choices, actions, and words become reflections of Christ's character. In this way, we not only experience peace and prosperity but also become agents of transformation in the lives of others. Imagine the impact we can have in our families, communities, and workplaces when we seek God's wisdom in every area of our lives. Divine wisdom is a precious gift, and its practice transforms our lives and the lives of those around us. As we seek wisdom, we not only grow in our faith but also help build a world that is more just, loving, and in line with God's purposes. Postponing important tasks or delaying decisions that we know we need to make is very easy. Saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I'll deal with it later," or even, "It's not worth trying now," are excuses we give ourselves. However, every moment we don't act is a missed opportunity to build something meaningful. Laziness doesn't just manifest in obvious actions, like staying still and doing nothing. Often, it hides in excuses, the fear of starting, and even in the endless search for comfort. God, in His wisdom, knows that diligent work is not only a tool for achieving our goals but also a way to shape our character. When we commit to something, even the small things, we are practicing patience, perseverance, and dedication. These values not only make us better people but also align us with the nature of God, who is a God of order and purpose. I remember a story that illustrates this well. A man I met was facing financial difficulties, and in his mind, he thought the solution was to wait for a stroke of luck. He said, "If I win the lottery, all my problems will end." Meanwhile, he ignored the small job opportunities around him, considering them insignificant or too exhausting. Only when he decided to change his way of thinking and start acting, even with small steps, did his life begin to transform. He found a simple job, but he was diligent, showed commitment, and this opened new opportunities he never would have imagined. The lesson here is clear: God blesses the hands that work, but He cannot bless inactivity. It's not just about working hard, but about working with purpose, striving where there is meaning, and aligning our actions with God's plans. Laziness, on the other hand, is like a weed. It starts small, almost imperceptible, but if not combated, it can grow and choke everything we try to build. Proverbs chapter 6 verse 6 challenges us to learn from the ant, one of the simplest and most powerful examples of diligence in God's creation. The ant has no boss or supervisor, but works tirelessly, storing provisions and preparing for the future. What an incredible example! Nature shows us that continuous effort, even in small actions, can lead to extraordinary results. And we're not just talking about work in the professional sense. Diligence also applies to our spiritual life, our relationships, and the care of ourselves. For example, how much time do we dedicate to prayer, reading the Bible, and strengthening our connection with God? Many times, we want our lives to change, but we are not willing to invest time and energy in the things that really matter. Just like physical work, negligence in spiritual life also has consequences. Proverbs chapter 24 verses 30 and 34 gives us a vivid picture of this. I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding. And, lo, it was all grown over with thorns, and nettles had covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. Then I saw, and considered it well, I looked upon it, and received instruction, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. This scenario reminds us that laziness not only hinders progress but also leaves us vulnerable to failure and chaos. The good news is that it is never too late to change. Diligence is not something that comes naturally to everyone, but it is a skill that can be developed. It all starts with small steps. Perhaps today you decide to start something you've been postponing for a long time. It could be organizing your finances, improving your health, starting a new project, or even spending more time with your family. No matter how small the action seems, the important thing is to start. And God is by our side on this journey. He strengthens us, gives us wisdom, and renews our strength when we are tired. When we entrust our work to Him, as He encourages us to do, He guides us and blesses our efforts. Now, I want to invite you to reflect. Is there an area in your life where you realize laziness has hindered your progress? Maybe it's a dream you've set aside, a task that seems too big to begin, or even something as simple as organizing your routine. I want to encourage you to give it to God today. Write in the comments something like, I choose to act with diligence, O Lord, bless my work and my efforts. Don't be afraid to start small. Remember, every great building begins with the first stone. Proverbs 6 verse 6 presents us with a powerful and incredibly simple image. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. Which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. Have you ever stopped to think how something so small and seemingly insignificant can convey such a profound lesson about diligence, planning, and steady work? God, in His wisdom, uses the ant as an example to teach us principles that can transform our lives. Ants are fascinating creatures. Despite their size, they work tirelessly without needing orders or supervision. They have a clear vision of what needs to be done and act with determination to reach their goals. No matter how heavy the load or how long the path, they keep moving forward, step by step. Even more impressive is their ability to plan. They understand that opportunities don't last forever, so they take advantage of the summer to prepare for harder times. How often do we ignore this lesson in our own lives? Many times, We leave for tomorrow what we know we should do today. We become complacent in times of abundance, thinking they will last forever, without realizing that life is made of seasons. Just as the ant prepares during the summer to face the winter, we too must make use of times of calm and stability to build a solid foundation that will sustain us through difficulties. Planning is one of the most important aspects we can learn from the ant. Planning isn't just about making lists or setting goals, but about thinking strategically regarding where we want to go and how we're going to get there. It's about aligning our efforts with a greater purpose, with the vision God has placed in our hearts. And most importantly, understanding that planning alone is not enough. It must be accompanied by action. A perfect plan means nothing if we're not willing to roll up our sleeves and get to work. I remember a time in my life when I felt completely lost. I had dreams, ideas, even some goals defined, but nothing seemed to move forward. It was only when I truly began to understand the importance of planning and acting consistently that things started to change. I realized that the lack of progress wasn't because of a lack of opportunities, but rather due to my own lack of discipline and organization. I wasn't making use of the summer in my life to prepare. I was just reacting to situations, without strategy, without consistency. Maybe you can relate to this too. How many times do we start something with enthusiasm, but for lack of planning or consistency, we end up giving up halfway? This can happen in any area of our lives, at work, in our studies, in relationships, and even in our spiritual walk. Sometimes we are so focused on immediate results that we forget that true transformation takes time, patience, and continuous effort. The ant teaches us the importance of working with purpose. It doesn't carry a grain for nothing. Every effort has a clear objective. In the same way, we must ask ourselves, am I working just to stay busy, or am I building something meaningful? This is where the fundamental role of prayer and divine wisdom comes in. When we seek God in our plans, He helps us discern what is truly important and directs our efforts in the right direction. Another point that draws my attention is how the ant works in a team. It is not alone in its journey. Each ant contributes to the well-being of the colony, and together, they are able to accomplish incredible things. This teaches us the value of being surrounded by people who share the same vision and who can support us in our goals. Just like the ants, we are stronger when we work together, when we unite our strengths for a greater purpose. Now, take a moment to reflect on your life. Is there any area in which you need to become more like the ant? Maybe it's your financial organization, planning your finances better to avoid surprises in difficult times. Or maybe at work, being more proactive and consistent in your tasks. It could even be in your spiritual life, dedicating more time to prayer, to reading the Word, and strengthening your relationship with God. The good news is that it's never too late to start. Just as the ant prepares for winter, you too can begin today to build a solid foundation for your future. It doesn't matter where you are right now or how big the challenge seems. What matters is taking the first step and moving forward, one day at a time. And remember, God is with us in every step of this process. He not only gives us the wisdom to plan, but also the strength and perseverance to work continuously. When we commit our plans to Him, as Proverbs 16 verse 3 teaches, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. We are guided by His hand and empowered to accomplish things we could never imagine on our own. I want to encourage you to put this into practice. Take a moment today to reflect, make a plan, ask God for direction, and take the first step. The path may be long, but the journey becomes possible, and even light, when we walk with wisdom, purpose, and faith. I hope this message has been an inspiration to you. If you liked it, please write Amen and share this message with someone who also needs to hear it. I invite you to click on the first comment where you will find a special prayer and the second best manifestation offer in the world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content like this. See you tomorrow.